Welcome to the Brubacher and Beyond podcast, where we are shaping the world we live in so more people can find the construction industry uncommonly refreshing. Today we have a special guest, and we are actually on location. And if you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm State Senator Dawn Keefer. You're in my district office here in Dillsburg. I represent the 31st Senatorial District that covers the northern part of York from the city north and then southeastern Cumberland. I've been in the Senate for about a year and a half now.
Okay.
Prior to that, I served 4 terms in the House. I came in on regulatory reform. I'm a small business owner. My husband's a small business owner, family of small businesses, and so it was regulations that drove us crazy. It was rules for the sake of rules, and that is something that I have championed and I continue to champion, just trying to get government out of the way and let our businesses prosper. If I didn't have all of this to navigate, I wouldn't need to come to government and ask for help or permission, right? Our communities could excel.
Yeah.
So that's something I've been passionate about. I continue to be passionate about whatever area it is. Yeah, sure, we need some regulation in place, right, for health and for safety.
Yeah.
But now it's guaranteed safety for everything, and it's what the government deems safe, or what the government deems to be healthcare, and they can wedge their way in and start manipulating the landscape through rules and through incentives and grants and tax credits, picking winners and losers.
Picking winners and losers. Okay. Really look forward to this meeting. First of all, we do want to thank you for the things that you represent. We at Brubacher appreciate your stances on certain
small business, personal freedoms. I'm all for you being able to do what the Constitution is supposed to enable you to pursue, right? Your happiness and your dreams. It doesn't guarantee that you're getting it, but it gives you the ability to do it, the opportunity that it provides. And so when government gets involved and puts up hurdles and barriers or starts doling out your tax money to your competitors, right, that's something I'm very sensitive to.
Yeah, so we do appreciate that. So some of the things that we started talking about earlier today, we can dive right into all these topics, but really where we talk about constructability of a project, we see the projects when we get involved are probably at least minimum 3 years to some of our developers have about 10 years of span to get an approval for their development for their sites. I don't have a magic wand or an answer, and I think it's very complex, but that is something that is out in the industry and drives up cost, right? It drives up cost of land before you can even build on it. So that's something that I would like to talk to you a little bit further about and get some ideas from what you think.
Right. I was in the House prior to my time in the Senate, and I was state representative for the 92nd, that's Northern York County, that I had in that district. Now, as a senator, my district is all of Northern York, from the city north and then southeastern Cumberland. So that's where we're seeing just explosion in development and population growth. And now in the Senate, I am the chair of the local government committee. So I was not on that prior to when I was in the House, so it's a new territory for me. But I have been involved in building and trying to streamline regulations. So I've had the REINS Act, regulations of the executive and needed scrutiny. Just says any regulation that has an impact of $1 million or greater, and I have the independent fiscal office determine that, has to go through the General Assembly for a vote. So that you don't have unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats that are just making these rules that serve as laws because you have to jump through all these hoops. So that's what I kept hearing from all industry and from builders, from everybody, just saying rules upon rules, not for safety, not for health, but for the sake of rules. And so that was what I really came in on. I have had that bill. John DeSanto had it in the Senate prior to me coming in. I had it in the House, and we would get ours passed each chamber and then just could not get it over the finish line.
Wow. Would you say you're an entrepreneur by heart, your businesses that you've been involved in? Or?
Yeah, I would. Again, like I said, I come from a family of small businesses, so I had consulting and some public relations that I was doing. My husband has a custom motorcycle business, so he builds and fabricates and does service repair of all older V-twin motorcycles. His dad had an auto repair business, car sales. His sister has a full day spa, 47 employees that she's built from the ground up. Grocery stores, convenience stores, you name it. We've been involved in a little bit of everything. And every Christmas, I host the Wetzel Christmas party. That's my dad's side of the family. I'm one of 17 cousins. And it's just this commiseration fest because everybody has these businesses. Well, I can't do this. Well, I had to do this the other day. I had DHS came in. They were mad at me about what I had in selection for SNAP. And just over and over. And so really that was my drive, was to get government out of the way.
Yeah. And really, when government is out of the way, it does help sometimes. But I guess there's a balance. Like,
Sure.
How do you look at something and say, okay, this is fair?
So here's a perfect example, right? Should doctors be licensed to practice? Sure, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because that could kill you, right? If they don't know what they're doing. So we license our doctors. Do I need pharmaceutical tech assistants to be licensed? I don't think so, right? I already have a licensed pharmacist.
Yeah.
I have a licensed pharmacist tech, right?
Yeah.
Why do I need all of the others, right? They're already licensed. They have to carry all of this insurance. Depending on who you are, you have to be bonded. That only adds to costs,
Yes.
right? Right now they want to do this, and this would impact you. They want to license home inspectors, right? There's a bill. So after we just had a discussion in Professional Licensure Committee about affordable housing and some things that we could do there, they wanted to license home inspectors. And then not only just license them, it's an annual registration that they have to pay. It could go up every year on an escalator, but it would require continuing education credits, 24 continuing education credits every single year. Well, I have to pay to do that as a home inspector, right? That's going to cost you more, right? Which is going to cost a homeowner more. Your mortgage company is already going to be selective on who your home inspector can be.
Yes.
As is your insurance company.
Yes.
Right? It seems to be that we're passing the buck to try to get more, right? That way I'm not responsible for that. I'm assuring you I'm going to make you have insurance for this, but it's not going to cover that, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of balance, right? We have, if you're a contractor, right, you have to be licensed with the Attorney General.
Yeah.
Okay. Has nothing to do about your capability.
Yeah.
Nothing to do about your capability. It's only about you being able to go after a unreputable contractor so that the Attorney General can track that down if you have a bad contractor that puts in a bad shower, right?
Yeah,
and it leaks, and I can go after this person because you have to have a code. Well, guess who's not going to register? That unreputable contractor, right?
Yeah.
There's fly-by-night
Fly-by-nights
operations
by the
that
time
come
they
in,
get-
right?
yeah.
They're not going to do it anyway. So what does that do? That just is another hassle for our contractors, for our developers.
costs.
And then on the flip side of that, I have a builder locally who called me because he's getting really frustrated. He has to prove all these subcontractors that he has are not employees, right? So I had a bill that's just simple. It says, hey, if you're registered on that list with the Attorney General as an independent contractor, that can serve as prima facie that you are, in fact, an independent contractor.
Yeah.
And we cannot get that passed. And labor and industry goes back on these builders, right? And they have to prove that every one of those contractors who already has an EIN number, already files a separate, right, has to still go back and say, nope, your contract wasn't spelled out. It didn't say this. We have one of our employees here, thousands and thousands of dollars. They were fined and they had to pay attorneys to try to navigate labor and industry on workers' comp and unemployment comp insurance.
Yeah, especially in our industry, in the beginning stages or small stages, you're a person who's grading or putting in driveways or paving or something of that small, I say the barrier to entry of the industry is small. It stifles that because there's so much of that. Like you said, there's overcomplication. I mean, here's a person who's pretty good at running an asphalt machine that now has to deal with all this back end paperwork.
Right. And you have contractors to say, right, all I do, right, is excavation. I don't do asphalt. I sub all of that out.
Yes.
And the hoops that the state makes you go through to prove that, how much does that cost? Right? And for small businesses, it's a lot more because we don't have teams of accountants and attorneys, right?
Yes.
On staff and compliance officers, right? Just to comply with all of these rules. We don't have that, right? We are the accountant, the bookkeeper, the attorney, the excavator, right? We do it all. And so I'm really sensitive to that because I explain to my colleagues when I'm on the floor, challenging some of their ideas. I'm like, you understand that in my husband's business, we're the floor sweeper, we're the toilet scrubber, we're the bike builder, the accountant. We do it all.
Yes.
We don't have the resources and the bandwidth to hire all of those people.
100%. I think that's what's missing sometimes when they just don't know and they've never been in that situation like you talked about, wearing multiple hats, the accountant, all of those things. So one of the things in the industry we hear all the time is affordable housing. Everybody wants affordable housing, and we look at it sometimes, it's just like the time that projects take could be 3 years or 10 years. And that's before a shovel gets into the ground. And people don't see that. It's a cost, right? It's a cost every time the engineer gets involved, every time attorneys get involved. It's just cost on cost. And also municipality to municipality could be a little bit different.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that part of the construction industry?
So I think we need to streamline a lot of that, right? So I'm for local control. We have local control for a reason.
Yeah.
Constitutionally, land use is local.
Yes.
But things could be streamlined. So if we're going to be the state and we're going to say, hey, everybody has to have a stormwater plan, right? Well, that needs to be consistent.
Yes.
Right? It should not be, well, in this municipality, right? You have to walk backwards, wait 2 weeks, put it on green paper in 7 copies, but this one lets you do it forward in 1 copy on pink paper. It's not that difficult, right? And so not only that, when you're putting in some of these permitting, and while they have claimed to streamline the permitting, that's not what rubber hits the road. I don't have developers that are experiencing that yet. They're not netting any benefits from that yet, that they say they have done. But it should be like I go on to Amazon, right? And I can put in my product that I want, right? I can track that the whole way through and see where it's at. I should be able to go online, submit everything for this application, whatever permit it is, X, Y, Z. I go in, I put it on. I shouldn't be even able to hit the next button if it's incomplete. Right? Because what they'll do is say, oh, you didn't have this or that.
And send it back.
And all that is a minimum 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's if you catch it right away, right? Otherwise, you're like, I'm waiting on you. Well, we sent this that said you didn't have this box and this box checked, and we wanted a copy of this. And then you think you have everything, and you come back and they're like, well, actually, we needed this as well. Instead of being comprehensive and saying, there's everything we need, that you don't milk this out for weeks and weeks on end. And there's no reason that can't be streamlined from municipality to municipality, and you could do it at the county level. You have the county planning commission.
Yes.
Now, I'm also here so one of the individuals, he's an engineer, it's on some kind of committee at the governor's level, and he has explained that some of the reorganization at DEP has been to empower counties more, right? And that they don't have to punt everything automatically to the regional DEP person. And I said, well, that's not what I'm hearing, though, from my counties or my builders or my developers. And he said, well, that's how it's supposed to work, and sometimes they're just doing it. So again, why isn't that consistent?
Yeah, I've never heard one client was like, I had a great experience going through this process of getting my plans approved. Right. One of the topics that's coming up, AI. Do you think AI has a place for this kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
Or what is your overarching...
So DEP always complains that they're short-staffed, right? They have all these things they have to do, and they're so short-staffed, and that's why it takes so long. And that's why I've always said, hey, if you just put this in a queue, right? Like an Amazon type thing, right? That would save you a lot of time and money. I was like, I got 2 young boys that are pretty savvy with computers. I could probably build you an app for that, relatively cheap.
Yes.
But that's part of it. And then these reviews could be AI. Why can't it, right? Because if they're all based on numbers, right? You have your grade, you have what your flow is, you have all these things that are measurable
amounts,
right?
That you can put in.
You should be able to plug all of that. You should be able to run that, get that form to align with AI, and that could do that, and that'll save you the manpower. Because a lot of this is tedious.
Yes, a lot of it's very specialty. The person's been in it, just doing it for a long period of time.
And you also have, what I have heard from developers, is that the DEP agent that's there reviewing isn't even an engineer. Which maybe that's not necessary, right? But they're trying to re-engineer work that an engineer is doing.
Yes.
So I go back to, if you are a licensed and bonded engineer, right, and you're putting your stamp on it, that's your license that's on the line.
100%.
And you can already get fined, and that's why you have to be bonded, right, that you're insured for this amount to cover. So if you have all that, why do I have to go back and pay the municipality and the county and the state all of these fees to review a permit that I've already had an engineer stamp?
Yes. And
beyond compliance.
And it's their engineer at that location who's being financially paid. One of the engineers I talked to, I mentioned Denny Howe, his thought was, that we talked about this for a long period of time, if all the engineers have a stamp and are permitted, it should be like I can pick my engineer that I want to use to double check me. Even if you want another engineer to be checked, just hire that engineer, because maybe there are engineers in different parts that are busy or not busy. And There's so many ways, I think.
Right? So that's the same thing with your codes enforcement officer, right?
Yeah.
So that's another issue that's been ongoing since I've got into the General Assembly, is that you go to a municipality, and some of them have their own codes enforcement officer, but some use a third party to do it, right? And these are small communities that you have, and so they may have a beef with this company and that codes enforcement officer, and so they're not able to get things done, or you're at their mercy waiting for things to be done. Why can't your codes enforcement officers, you just go get one? Like, why does it have to be the one for that municipality?
Yes.
So there's a bill that Representative Doyle Heffley has had since I've been there, and it would require that a municipality have 3. You don't have to have them on staff, right? But just approved. Here you go. Choose any of those 3.
That's a great idea.
And again, I don't have to go to a specific, I compared it to getting your car inspected, right? I don't have to go to a specific one. I just go to one that has their license from PennDOT, and that's a whole
nother thing.
Process, right?
Yeah.
That's there. You have to go get your stickers, and so that's where the accountability is.
Yeah.
And it's their license, their insurance that's on the line if you don't conduct business according to the law.
100%.
Right? So why can't we do this with our codes enforcement officers? Their neck is on the line, right? They could get fired, or they could get sued, or they could lose insurance or their license or whatever it is. This isn't hard to do, and there's no reason for this. I don't see any formidable reason why you couldn't have that, and that would expedite things exponentially.
Yeah. So if I am listening to this, and hopefully you're enjoying this, if you do like us, if you don't, tell me that you don't like us. What do I do?
So how do you eat an elephant? I say one bite at a time, right?
Yes.
So you pick some of these things out one by one. So I worked with, I believe, Representative Zimmerman is who referred you. So
yes.
Representative Zimmerman and I have worked on different pieces of this, and he has an MPDES bill.
Yeah.
Mine's a little different from his in the Senate, but you work on one, right? Let's figure out what these are, right? And pick them apart one by one. And then you, as somebody in the industry, could pick up the phone, call your legislator and say, hey, Senator Keefer has this bill. We need it. Here's why. Where are you at?
Yes.
Co-sponsor the bill. Or ask your leader to pull it up for a vote, right?
Okay.
To get these things on their radar.
So they know about it.
Right. The only ones that are doing that are the unions. So union shops, right, they have their paid full-time lobbyists. They're up there, and the things that they're putting in place, right, are not helping these small businesses, independents, right? And you don't even see it until it hits you over the head because
100%.
you don't have all of those resources to look up. You might be a member of ABC, which is a great organization that tries to keep tabs on this, but if you're not engaged, not paying attention, and that's what you can do, right? We need to start picking these apart. Representative Zimmerman has the one, the MPDES, which is 5 acres, saying, all right. But what I found in Pennsylvania is we allow for that exemption under 5 acres. You don't need an MPDES permit, but you can't be attached to any impaired waterways.
Yeah.
Well, there's no direct connection in Pennsylvania. They say, okay, you go in and you say, okay, here I want to do a general permit, MPDES permit, for a 2 acre or 3 acre plot. And they'll say, oh, well, 25 miles west of you is the Conde de Gwinnett, and it's impaired in this section, so you don't qualify.
Yes.
But you have no direct surface connection.
Yes.
So I have a bill that says there has to be a direct surface connection.
Okay.
Right? We have to do some things that to try to get at this, because a lot of that's just done by rules. That's not a law that says that. It's not a law. It's just a rule.
Interpretation of the rule.
Well, it's DEP saying, okay, you passed a law that says we have to improve the waterways to the Chesapeake Bay.
Yes.
That's a general one.
That's a general.
Now DEP gets to say, here's how we're going to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody has to put a stormwater containment system on their property. We're basically going to bankrupt all of our wastewater facilities, right? And make them do upgrades that yield nominal benefits, right? We're going to do this and that. They get to make up the rules, and they point back to that law saying, well, I was authorized to promulgate it. This is how we're facilitating that law. So when you have Chesapeake Bay tributary strategies, right, is what we're trying to make improvements. First it was nitrates or sulfates, then it was nitrates, then it was sediment. We had to mitigate this many pounds of sediment, and now, right, it's like the goalpost keeps moving, right?
Yeah.
Now it's total volume, right? And they keep defining that. While we have made improvements, and we're not getting credit for it, Chesapeake Bay has made great improvements. We have here in my district, we have the yellow breeches. It is federally recognized quality stream. People come from all over the world, fly fishermen, to fish on it, right? we don't get credit for it. We're not getting credit for it. In York County, similar to Lancaster County, Lancaster's the worst contributor, supposedly, to the Chesapeake Bay, and we're number 2 in York County, right? And they put a lot of burden on us to mitigate this. But we kept saying, the modeling's antiquated and it's flawed.
Yeah.
And nobody would do anything about it. So York County spent the money, hired USGS to put in monitors at some key points. I think there were 6 around the county, or 12 maybe. And their results came up 900% better than what DEP had assessed them at. Right? And now we just saw where, I think it was 2 weeks ago, DEP put out a press release, or the Governor Shapiro put out a press release saying that they were flagging all these different waterways as impaired waterways. I want to know, did we get credit? Are we getting credit for that? What has been done? We spent hundreds of millions of dollars to mitigate this. What credit are we getting for it?
Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah. I mean, the waterways have, in my opinion, cleaned up tremendously. I think back in the day, yes, there was pollutants, or people didn't know what pollutants were causing effects. So one of the things, though, I find very interesting today is there's no discussion. Like, I don't know, there's no room for what my opinion is and what your opinion is. Let's talk about it. How do you feel it is right now, the tension? Is it you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong? Or is there some momentum of us coming together and listening and coming up with solutions?
So I think actually there's a lot more discussion that goes on than you realize. And that's because
the press.
Right. They're not going to cover it whenever it's all nice and everybody's getting along. So I will say housing is one of those areas, right, where people are trying to figure out, in this area anyway, how do we get more units on the market, right? How do we get people into units that is affordable for them? What is affordable, right? There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of bipartisan initiatives there looking at that. One of them was, I had a Democrat from the Philly area that reached out to me and they said, did Senator Keefer see my bill? This is right up her alley. And it was some of these units they've renovated, added additional units in there, but they had these antiquated rules that says, well, you have to have 2 staircases in these locations, and it just adds to the cost. You don't even have a location to do it. And so just getting rid of some of those things, I said, oh, absolutely, I didn't see the bill, right? So there is a lot of cooperation, people working together. I have a bill, it's not in this bailiwick, but it's hospital price transparency.
Okay.
That is a bipartisan bill. There's probably equal numbers, Republicans and Democrats, all of us trying to get our arms around that issue. It's runaway costs, and how are we going to fix that? Yeah. So there is some, and I think with your listeners engaging, regardless of who their member is, and facts tell, stories sell. And so if you go in and say, this is how this rule is impacting my business. Why? Why do we need that rule, right? I'm not saying I'm not going to mitigate my water, right? And I'm not saying I'm not going to build to the code. I'm absolutely going to do that, right? But it's all these extra things. And now you wonder why there's no middle housing, right? There's really low income or very high, because for our builders, they're saying, well, it's so expensive. I've got 30 to 40% of my costs are just in these costs that before you get a shovel in the ground, right? Well, I'm going to build the maximum size I can build to get the most amount of money I can get.
Yeah.
You can't blame them for that.
No, especially if they're publicly traded, they have stockholders.
Right.
I look at this all the time. I mean, some of the fastest selling homes are in that $1 million plus. And it's like, okay, what's the size of the lot? And then the properties itself, those are the ones that are selling. So that's the ones they're going to make, right? And it's like, wow, what's the affordability of those in some locations?
And it's supply and demand.
And demand,
and then I go back to, it's not government's job to make things affordable. Right? Yeah. Like, the Constitution doesn't guarantee that everything has to be affordable for everybody at every point in time of their lives.
Yes.
But what is the role government has played in it is where I come at, right?
Yes.
And when we spend beyond our budget, that drives inflation, right? Because it drives the markets. And they're saying it's not predictable. We know it's going to cost us more money. They're going to tax or fee us more. So costs go up. Yep. And so that's where I say that's our role as government, right? Is to be fiscally responsible with our dollars, right? And it isn't our job to be all things to all people at all times. But when we do things like that, it's irresponsible. When I take your tax dollars, right, and your competitor gets them, whether it's a tax credit or a grant,
or a job,
and then says, get on the line and compete.
Yeah.
How is that fair? And they're like, oh, but that's a repressed area. Listen, I come from a working class family, probably working poor, right? I'm busting my hump. My parents made a lot of sacrifices so that we could get, right? And they never had their hand out. They would never take government benefits for anything, would never, right? Self-responsibility that they had. And so when you take my hard-earned dollars and give it to my competitors, I'm very sensitive to that. Because we're not asking for you to give us anything or give us a grant or waive our taxes. We're just asking you to get it out of our way so we're actually allowed to work for our money.
Yeah. Wow, that's refreshing to hear because you don't hear that every day, right?
Right.
Or I don't hear that every day.
Right.
So one of the biggest things too in the workforce is just we could hire people tomorrow, right? Like we have a list of open positions, and I would say that the construction industry is drawing more attention to its benefits, especially with the pay increases that have happened. What do you see the future with that opportunity? And are there things that maybe we should be thinking about doing from a business side that you would recommend to some businesses?
So again, right, we can't keep our young people. So our only growing population in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is the 65 plus.
Yeah.
Right? We're losing our young talent.
Yeah.
And there's many different reasons for that. But first of all, it's not affordable. Property taxes is one of them, right? So if I want to go in to get a house, start a home, right? I've got to have, in our area, you've got to have at least $500 additional to your mortgage payment, right? To escrow.
Yes.
To pay those, right? So looking at that, it's not just that we're taxing the elderly out of their homes. It's the access issue with our next generation that would like to live here.
Yeah.
So that's one of their areas, right? Plus they're saddled with debt from colleges, right? That was a false bill of goods that they were sold. And the government lent them or guaranteed money for them to go to college for a degree that may not have any employability, right? And our higher ed has no skin in the game on that, right? Yeah. They get their money regardless. So as a business owner, you can talk to any of your listeners, right? If I want to borrow 50 grand, the bank requires me to have 50 grand in the bank.
Yeah.
Right?
Or a debt or collateral.
Collateral,
or something.
right?
Yes,
but
100%.
you give a 17-year-old $40,000 a year to go to college.
Yeah.
Some are more.
Or more,
right?
70,000.
And that makes no sense. And then on top of it, they're mad because, wait, I didn't get that 6-figure job because nobody told them about you got to have an employable skill.
Yeah.
And you have to have a work ethic. You're actually going to have to start here and prove yourself. But there's none of that. And I think that's where the trades come in. That's where building comes in because that's such a great opportunity. If you can build your skill through an apprenticeship, one-on-one, right? You can take that and go anywhere you want with it, right? And you see it because if you get somebody who's good, who actually has that leadership ability and has that self-management, right? You can't pay them enough. You can't, right? And you're stealing amongst one another. Our schools are starting to adapt. They've been slow to it, right? To say, getting them into career in tech to see what the opportunities are. There's not enough spaces for them. Yeah. So we should be doing more apprenticeships then. Let's do more co-ops and apprenticeships to get them out of the schools. Our graduation rate should be 100%. Yeah. Right? Get these kids where they want to go. Plug them in, and then they might say, oh, okay, now I see where college might make sense for this piece of it. Yeah. My son's, one of his friends, right out of school, is a pipe fitter in Maryland. Okay. Not here because, well, it was apprenticeship we have apprenticeship ratios for merit shops. Okay. So it's a 1-to-4 ratio. Yeah. So it's 1 apprentice to 4 journeymen. So you get some of these smaller businesses, not even really small, they can't even take the apprenticeship. Yeah. Unions can, but they can't. Yes. So he went to Maryland, right? And so that's what we're seeing more in our areas. They're going to just jump the line to New Jersey, Maryland, Ohio, because they can get in right away. They can get those opportunities. We are shooting ourselves in the foot. The federal government, Labor just sent a report to us, and it was called a circular. And they said, you are so far behind all the other states in your apprenticeship. And we have made you an authorizing agency to run these apprenticeships on your own and create them, but you're failing. And we are looking at taking over and reinserting ourselves to get apprenticeships going. I mean, we have the youth, we have the talent here. Yeah. Why are we not trying to keep them here instead of creating more hurdles and obstacles for them to do it? Like, the best value you could have is that one-on-one apprenticeship. Yeah. And speaking to a lot of them that are traveling, like you said, they were like, my family's here. Like, it's not easy for them just to pick up and move. Right. But they're like, the opportunity is there, the amount of wealth they can make. I mean, you can't
knock them for not trying.
Yeah,
I mean,
my son is 21. His friend bought a house at 19, the pipe fitter friend, because he's making a lot of money as a pipe fitter.
Yeah.
19 years old, bought a house, and it's a fixer-upper.
But
all
still,
that's... All of them are coming on, have been coming on weekends and contracting, and he's almost into house. My son watching is just so impressed.
That's amazing.
By it. Yeah.
So one of the big booms that is coming to Pennsylvania, or is trying to come to Pennsylvania, is data centers. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Right.
And I will just say this from a construction side, this is the opportunities that I see. Pennsylvania has the Marcellus Shale and the Utica Shale, so we have the energy that's in the ground. There's not enough pipes to get it to the locations that need to get it to. But as far as energy, like we have the energy in Pennsylvania. Like that's,
right.
And then we have the need in the data centers that can be built in the land on some of this. And they do want to develop in Pennsylvania. I think the last one was about 21 data centers in Pennsylvania that want to be built. 19 of them are getting pushed out, or they're not going to move forward.
Yeah. So I think where it makes sense, let's do it. I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
We don't have enough electricians. And again, I go back to that apprenticeship ratios, right? So we should be proactive that way so they can see, look, we have the labor force.
Yes.
And then let's be smart about it. Where you're locating these, where they want to locate.
Yes.
And so I do know that some of the bigger ones, they are looking to see what's under the ground. And that's where they're going. So they can come straight up from the ground to tap into the natural gas.
Yes.
Right? So that's where they could be, right? They don't have to build it out, right? Build right by it.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to build all over where you're building transmission lines and you're going to have to fight the public. So TMI, when people are mad about it, I'm just thinking, it's a prime location. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Everything's there that you need.
There.
It makes sense. So where it's a fit, we should absolutely do it. We should also protect tier 1, tier 2 soils, right? We should not be building these things on prime farmland. We got to make sure, do they really have the capacity with the water? A lot of them are doing closed loop systems, but just make sure we're being smart about it that way. And then I think with Trump's executive rule saying bring your own power, right? That alleviates some of the pressure, because people are saying, well, even if they take that energy, they take that natural gas power, right? That's energy that's not going onto the grid, PJM. But it wouldn't be going onto the grid anyway, because they don't have the infrastructure, enough bandwidth to get it there, right? We had 4 years where we could not expand any of these pipelines. We haven't put any new base load energy on the grid in Pennsylvania since 2019.
Yeah, and Pennsylvania is the largest export of power.
Yes.
Of all the states,
right.
We export the most.
Right. And so part of that's a conversation with PJM, which is the regional energy grid that we have, right? Because Pennsylvania, like you said, we are the largest exporter. So we produce 60% more than we consume.
Yeah.
But then you go over the border to Maryland, and they consume, I think it's 40% more than they produced. And they took 2 offline. They were attempting to take a third baseload energy plant offline, and then they were stopped by FERC from doing that. So we've gone to PJM and say, that impacts our rates.
Yes, because that's
right.
wrong.
And then they're also coming over the border and trying to take prime land from us to do generation in Pennsylvania to power their operations in Maryland.
Wow.
It's federal, so it gets a little seedy there, but there has to be some accountability for their decisions. It should not impact our ratepayers.
Yes.
And that's the other thing with data centers, right? Same thing with that energy. Make sure that that's not driving up rates for our residential ratepayers, right? And there's a way to do that. Again, some of them, there's a micronuclear that they're talking about, that they can bring that on site.
Yep.
They can, again, like I said, tap right there. If a power line's under the ground, they can locate closer to some of these production sites.
Yeah.
There's smart ways to do it. Let's not do it, back it up against some development that's only 200. We're dealing with that in the Northeast. It's, I think, 250 yards from a development.
Yeah.
There's areas they could locate. And how about like all of the coal region, right? You have all those abandoned mines.
Yes.
Right? And again, they'll say, oh, well, the power is not closer. It's getting power there. Well, let's be strategic about it again. Where in that area could we locate that would make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of those fields that you're talking about. I agree. Like we should not be taking farm fields that are producing food and then switch it over. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and then we also have to make sure, right? These are trillion-dollar companies, right? These are not small companies, right?
Yeah.
That we're getting something for this, right? Because they are getting a tremendous value. In Pennsylvania, we, in 2022, I think it was, waived the sales tax just for data centers, right?
Yeah.
Things like that don't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Why are we doing that?
Why are we?
And I was told, well, that's why they're coming here, because we don't have sales tax on data centers. However, Virginia has a personal property tax.
Yeah.
in addition to their property tax. So the personal property tax assesses everything in that facility every year. They replace that equipment in there every 4 years. That's a huge boon for them. So I don't see how us not having that sales tax rate, we should be benefiting from that for sure.
100%, yeah.
But it's an opportunity, and we shouldn't just shut the door on it. Let's be smart about it. Let's make sure that we benefit from it, and let's build up our workforce. And I have talked to all of my municipalities, invited them in to say, hey, make sure you have zoning in place, and then let's be smart, right? Where would you put it? And most of them are already working with the Planning Commission to do it. Yeah. And then make sure you're protecting your water. You're getting will serves. Make sure they're bringing their energy, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure you're protecting your community. Are you getting stuff for it? And most of them want to be good community partners.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So that you're not caught flat-footed when they do come in and you got this big fight on your hands.
Yeah. So we have a lot of topics and I want to be respectful of your time. Is there any other things out there that the public should know or be aware of? Or how can a person in the public do better, help their community?
Help their community better. It's assessing what the needs are. So we go back to that affordable housing. What is affordable housing, right? Because what's affordable for you might not be for me. Yeah. But we're talking about entry level. What's that price point to access the market? And we're told we're giving this kind of arbitrary number, how many units we need. And I'm not sure that that's accurate just based on our population that's been stagnant. Yeah. But what I did find when I was pulling up those population numbers, the only reason we haven't declined in population is our out-migration, domestic out-migration has been backfilled by international in-migration. And so there's a lot of refugee communities that have been placed in Pennsylvania, and I don't know that they've all been quantified, but that puts pressure on the housing market, right? That's supply and demand, and it's that entry point that we're looking for. Yes. So again, at the local level, certainly, right, we want to be compassionate. We want to help some of these communities, right? But there's got to be a balance there. And so you have some communities where they're bringing in thousands and you only have a community of 4,000, right? Yes. That's not a balance, right? And that puts all these undue pressures on not just the housing market, but services that that community or that population is going to need. So all these things you need to be thinking about strategy-wise before it's being brought to you as a township supervisor, it's being brought to you as a borough council member. You're thinking, okay, right? You have these resources, PSATs, the Boroughs Association, whatever it may be. You're not the first one to encounter this. Engage and use those associations, right? Best practices, what did you guys do? So you're not reinventing the wheel, or you're putting things in place so that you're growing intelligently, right? That you're being very purposeful in what you're doing. That's what we haven't done, and I think that's, especially in this area, Cumberland County, the part I have, right, is the fastest growing county in the state. Again, we have to be a lot more strategic on this. What do we want that population growth to look like? And I go back to, everybody can't live in Cumberland County. Yes. Right? So you will push out, right? I live in Franklin Township, York County, much more rural area. But I did that on purpose, right? And I could get more affordable land at the time. I could have the space that I wanted, right? There's all ebb and flow and balance that's there. Our population hasn't grown exponentially to justify everything that we're seeing as far as price hikes and affordable housing. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, definitely supply and demand is the biggest balance of the economy, right?
It's because it all concentrated into one area because you have other areas that have lost population. Yes, 100%. Right?
So again, I'm respectful for your time. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Whenever you want to come on, you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe we can get Representative Zimmerman and you at the same time. That would be great. But again, thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Brubacher Podcast today. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our podcast so you can listen to the new episodes each month. Share it with your friends in the industry and those who might like to learn more about the construction industry. Feel free to check out our website at www.brubacher.net. I'm Keith Brubacher, President of Brubacher Excavating Incorporated, and we hope you found our discussion insightful, and we look forward to the next time together.